Okay, great. So welcome all to the Innovation Sprint info session. This next hour or so really is designed to really help you address any questions you may have about this upcoming program. I'll give you a little bit of background on what the program is. So first of all, my name is Jacques Shirazi. I'm the Director of Student Entrepreneurship and the Blackstone Launchpad. So I'm part of the basement, but I'm also part of an office called the Office of Innovation and Commercialization. So what the basement does is we have a number of programs to help students kind of go through their entrepreneurship journey to potentially creating a venture or potentially just be interested to learn about entrepreneurship skills and apply it to jobs once you graduate. So we have annual programs that we run. So if any of you ever wanted to start a company or work on an idea, you're welcome to apply. We take applicants typically in the fall. So we have applications in the fall and the winter. So we do have actually an open application for the annual program for the winter quarter. We also run a number of other programs. We run one program called the Latinx Leadership Entrepreneurship Leadership Program. That started in the fall. It's a 1 year long program. I'm happy to tell you more about it as well. But the one I'm going to focus on today is really the Innovation Sprint. And the Innovation Sprint, in a nutshell, is really an opportunity for students to work on real problems, real challenging problems that we and our partners, and in this particular cohort, we have projects from the city of Carlsbad, city of Chula Vista, the airport, San Diego International Airport. We have the zoo, and then we also have the Port of San Diego. And lastly, we have an architectural firm called Miller Hall partnering with a local organization called the San Diego Green Building Council. So all these challenges, we have 12 in totals, are really designed for students to tackle a particular challenge. It could be something around environmental, sustainability, transportations. It could be focused on animal care with something around the zoo. It could be around materials, water assessments, and so on. So it's really designed to give you a chance to kind of work on a mini project where you get rewarded by working in a team, most likely with people that you never worked before. So you learn about the team dynamics. And second, you're actually going to be engaged with the client, right? So think of it as kind of like a mini consulting engagement where you're actually going to work with, in this case, maybe the San Diego Zoo, and work on a particular challenge they put forward for us to solve. So you'll have, starting in the winter quarter, so this spans 2 quarters, so winter and spring. So you'll have 2 quarters to try to solve that problem. In some cases, the problem is going to be quite challenging to do, but the purpose of the program is, yes, there is a desired outcomes, but there's also the journey. As students, you will learn on how to understand the problem, how to identify potential areas or path for next steps. You will also learn about how to do user research or customer discovery research. And then you also learn how to communicate and listen to the client, right? Because you're going to have interactive sessions with them on a regular basis. And at the end, the outcome is sort of like a final deliverable is a presentations where you'll give back what you've learned to the client. So you'll give an explanation of your journey, what you've learned, what you've accomplished, and potentially the outcome. It could be a solution, it could be a process, it could be actually a hardware if we get that far down the line. So that's the outcome of the program. So in terms of the structure of the programs, it's expected that you will probably have to spend 2 to 3 hours per week on this challenge. That will vary if you have larger teams. So right now I'm trying to really have at least minimum of teams of 3, 4 is an ideal number. So 2 3 hours per week. You'll have regular check-in with the client, with the company or organization that is sponsoring the project. Typically, you will meet with them every 2 weeks, maybe more frequently towards the end. But the idea behind it is that you'll be able to ask questions. They'll be able to ask questions from you, maybe receiving more information. And I know not knowing what's going to happen next year, but I'm hoping that in some cases, like for instance, Senegal Zoo, if you elect to do one of these projects, you might be able to go visit one of their facilities as you learn more about this particular project. There's like 4 projects from the Senegal Zoo. Same thing could apply with the Port of San Diego or the airport. So you may have a chance to actually go on site and either do user research survey or potentially just understand the context. So these are the things that are going to be there. So you'll have regular checking with the partner. You'll have also checking with myself and my staff, just to make sure you stay on track with the goals. Typically, you will have an onboarding meeting with the client. There'll be a midpoint review. So halfway through, there'll be a midpoint of where you are on your process. And then there's the final deliverables. On top of that, you're also going to have access to mentors, right? So we're going to be offering you, on top of having the client engagement, you're also going to have access to mentors that you could seek out additional help, right? And depending on what you're working on, we might look into an extended networks to find the right people to help you. But there'll be additional people out there. These are subject matter experts that might know about specific processes or particular industry that could help you shape your journey. So I'm going to pause for a second, but that's sort of kind of in a nutshell what the program is about. It's really an opportunity for you to experience what it's like to work on a real problem using the skill set that you are either currently acquiring or have acquired over the last several years at UCSD and apply it to a real problem. It also gives you a chance to really see what it's like to work for some of these organizations. It could potentially create incentive for you, interest to potentially apply for an internship once you graduate, or potentially for a job moving forward. So yeah, so that's sort of the exciting process. And obviously this is the second time we're doing this program. We've done it over the summer in a shorter time span. This time we're doing it over 2 quarters. Yeah, I'm going to leave it at that for now. And feel free to ask me questions. Either you could just raise your hand or you could just write something in the chat. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have. And I know some of you already asked me some questions about the program. Unfortunately, there are no stipend for this program at this point. And then I failed to mention, so you will be able to apply for AIP 197. Probably not in the winter, but in the spring, because I think you can only get it once. I'm not clear on the detail of it, but I was instructed by my colleague that the best time to apply would be in the spring. So you could actually get credit, 197 credit, AIP 197 credit for this particular project. So. Questions? Yes, I see a question. 1 second. That's a great question, Tatiana. Do we need to form teams before applying? I don't know anyone interested yet. That's a really good question. No, you don't. I think you'll see in the form is there are a number of questions. You'll have access to the challenges. So pick your top 3 preference, in the out of the 12, just pick the 3 that you like, that you personally like, and submit the rest. Or a video to submitting a short video and so on. But once we review the applications, we'll be creating teams, right? So part of that process is that hopefully you'll make new friends, work with people that you normally don't work. And I failed to mention the reason why, you're certainly welcome to come together as a team, and that's an option as well. If you have a team and you're part of a student org and you're like, this is fantastic, I want to work on this, you can come in as a team, there's no problem. The minimum is 3, I think. Less than 3 it's not ideal because it's a lot of work. And it's better for the interaction process. But if you don't have a team, just submit the form, pick the topics that you like, answer all the questions, and then we'll review this as part of the review committee, and then we'll assemble teams based on preferences on the challenges, but also on your background. So one thing that I failed to mention, the purpose of the innovation sprint also is to try to teach you the ability to work with different school of thoughts, right? So I don't know all your backgrounds, but I'm sure some of you are either focusing on STEM education or non-STEM education, arts and humanity. I really want to find a way to mix you all together. I don't want to bring a bunch of people with the same background doing the same project And the reason for it is because these are challenging. If you look at some of the challenges that we put forward, they're very complex. And these systemic challenges are only going to be solved by having a multidisciplinary approach. And to give you a glance of what's the outside world, it's sort of what's kind of upon us moving forward. By the time you graduate, once you join a company or an organization or government entity, that's what's going to be at stake. It's working with other people with different backgrounds, solving complex problems, and having that system view, the system thinking view in solving the problem. So I know I took a long answer to your questions, but yes, you don't have to apply with a team. Any other questions? Don't be shy. Yes, transfer students are allowed to apply. Great question. Thank you for bringing it up. So it's actually open to any student on campus, undergrad, graduate students, whether you're a freshman or transfer student. It's really meant to be agnostic. Anyone could join, and that's what we want. We want to encourage diversity in doing that. That's a great question. So in the summer, we're going to offer. So in the summer, we offer another program that I also manage. It's called the Converge Incubator Program. So that's a great question. We might offer in the summer. The challenge in the summer is it's a very short time frame. It's only 8 weeks program. So I'm not going to say 100% for sure we offer in the summer, but we might offer it if we're able to identify a project that could be potentially solved in 8 weeks time frame. So we'll have to rethink a little bit of how we do this. But right now, nothing has been decided yet. What could happen if this is extremely successful, we will most likely offer it again. This program, this innovation sprint will be an ongoing program that we would offer on a regular basis. What we could do next year, though, is instead of offering between winter and spring, we might do it fall, winter, right? I mean, I have to discuss it with my colleagues, but that could be an option. Or potentially it's a year-long project as well. The other thing that we might be doing next year is that we mostly are working with civic organization, right? So government entities and so on, and nonprofit organizations. Next year, we might be able to work with actual companies. So that'd be a little bit different. Great question here. What about the skill required to be accepted? So that's a great question. So, we're agnostic. You don't have to have any skills. My biggest interest as a reviewer for the program, how excited you are about to work on this project, that you have the time, right? I want to make sure this is not an impediment to your academic requirements, and that you're enthusiastic to work with others, right? So I think there are no specific skill set. I mean, in the application, you'll be asked to discuss some of your skill set, right? Whatever you've acquired over the years or what you're working on right now. But the beauty of this program is having people with different background and different school of thoughts will allow us to create better ideas over time, right? So, and it's also this ability to learn about the problem from the partners, but also learning from your peers, right? Because if you have an engineer, a chemist, and a social scientist, and maybe an arts and humanity, you're all going to learn from each other. Everybody have a different perspective on how to solve the problem, on how to communicate, how to tell that story. And you may, along the way, learn something about chemistry that you never thought of or something else. The question about what's the weekly time commitment, that's going to vary depending on the size of the team and the dynamics, but I would say 2 to 3 hours per week. That's what I'm forecasting, right? So think of it, there are at least every 2 weeks a meeting with the partner. And in between that, obviously you have to work on the project. So, it's just a matter of how well you're going to work with each other, right? So setting the boundaries in the beginning, you don't have to have a leader, but you have maybe a rolling leadership role. So somebody is taking the lead for maybe a couple of weeks and somebody else does that. But making sure that you have a sense of what are we working on? What are we going to do this week? What are we going to do next week? And so on. So that's where the partner is going to help you kind of set the stage about the problem statement and how you could actually try to solve it. And the mentor might help you with some of the key aspect of the technical or non-technical aspect. And myself, I'll be coming in and really kind of try to keep you on track toward the path that you have set forward. But yeah, the commitment is about 2 to 3 hours a week. And it might be slightly more towards the end because you have to wrap up everything together. But if you have a large team of 5, that could be feasible, right? So the smaller the teams, the more challenging that might be. How many teams will be there? I don't know at this point. It's going to depend on how many people apply for this program, what selections you make, right? So we have 12 challenges, right? So the magic is going to try to figure out how to make sure that your best choices are being kind of given to you, right? So that you have at least something you want to work on. And so it's going to be hard for me to tell, but I'm hoping maybe it's hard. I mean, we have a lot of people today that join. So we have 16. So I could see maybe teams, maybe 4 to 5 teams. I don't know. It's hard for me to tell at this point because we have a lot more people that couldn't attend today. So, but you know, potentially 5, 6 teams total at the max. That's what we could potentially handle. And I didn't go back. The question that you guys asked, did I answer all the questions correctly, or you have follow-up questions? I just want to make sure I'm reading as they come. But other questions? Like I said, this is a fantastic time for you to really learn about a new subject, learn and get experience from peers on campus, and potentially give you a glimpse at what it's like to work for a government entity or someone else. And it's a fantastic thing to have on your resume, right? Obviously, it's a great asset. So think of it as an internship. You will be able to apply for AIP 197. We'll make sure that everyone knows how to do that, but that should be pretty straightforward. So the mentors, it's going to be depending on the number of teams, and the mentor is going to be kind of based on a number of things. So depending on how many teams we have, that's one factor, one variable. And the other thing is what type of topics you have. So if some of the theme are focused around the airport, there's a great project from the Port of San Diego that is around addressing sea rise issue around the port infrastructure and looking at nature-based technology to address this solution. If this is one of the projects, I would have to find within my mentor pool a mentor that could really be knowledgeable about this subject, right? Either green infrastructure or potentially nature-based infrastructure. So it's going to depend. But what we'll do is that we'll match the team to a mentor, right? That's the process. So the one thing to bear in mind with the mentors is that there might be a little bit of a lag in a sense because of the holiday. So you're going to apply. You'll know if you're accepted in the program before the end of the quarter per se. Once we have that, we have already identified some mentors, but there might be a little bit of a lag between the time you meet with your mentors and the time we get back because of the holidays. People might not be able to be accessible. But the project will start week 1 in January, right? So we'll have an onboarding with the client that week, and then we'll have introduction to the mentor maybe the following week. Does that answer your question? Okay. You guys are very quiet. I'm not even having one person speak up. That's okay. It's totally fine.
I can ask one out loud. So could you just talk about like last time you did this program? I'm just curious to know like what kind of results you saw or like what people kind of did, how it went.
Yeah, so actually it's a great question. I'm glad you asked. Thank you. So if you go on the Basement website, we've redone the website. If you go under the Basement UCSD and you look at Innovation Sprint, that's where you could actually apply and everything. There are short videos at the end from partners as well as some of the teams. I think we have more coming, and some actually will be on the YouTube channel. I could find out when they are. But over the summer, it was the first time we were doing it. So we had 4 projects. One in particular I could mention, we had one focus with the airport. The airport put forward a project involving COVID-19, right? There was a lot of interest around the pandemic, but it was mostly focused around the impact of the pandemic on accessibility at the airport. So the team went and did a lot of research around understanding well, what it's like to navigate to the airport if you're nearsighted or if you're in a wheelchair. So just go into that user research to understand what are some of the obstacles that someone will have. And they did some interesting interviews talking to people and realizing there was a lot of frustration from people that have disabilities that going to the airport wasn't an enjoyable moment for them, right? Because they had a lot of hurdles that they had to overcome. This was a huge eye-opener for the airport. Obviously, the airport was aware of this issue. But what the outcome of the project, again, it was only 8 weeks, so it was quite short. So they provided that data, user research, and what they've learned from them, and they came up with a number of recommendations. And some were things that the airport was already going to do at some point, but some they never thought of, right? For instance, one idea that is to create sort of like a combination of different, like an advisory board that is made up of airport staff, but also airlines, as well as a member of the community, to talk about these issues and how to address these potential challenges around the airport infrastructure. Some of the other things were more technology oriented. They were looking at tools to be able to facilitate the process, especially the process from coming from the curb all the way to sitting on the plane, by using technology, by using a combination of an app in a way to better communicate the different steps and making sure that there were elements to really make the journey as pleasurable as possible for the traveler. So that's one project. Another one that was also interesting. A team looked at, so within the green building space, so high performance buildings, you've probably seen quite a bit on campus. We have a lot of these buildings. There are, green buildings. There are buildings that generate lower amount of energy or net energy or net water. But when you make buildings or you manufacture or you build buildings, the materials you use has all kinds of challenges, right? A lot of the materials we use in making building structures have chemicals. So this project actually looked at figure out ways to eliminate some of these chemicals that are widely found in building materials, like lead, flame retardant, and others. So they were actually initially looking at a list of 30 chemicals, but they narrowed down to 3 because that's all they could do over the summer. So not only they looked at the impact of these materials on the building infrastructure and the building health, but also looked at what are potential replacement out there. Are they materials that are chemical free that will be as beneficial in terms of building requirements and structures? And they went a step further. They even looked at the embodied carbon, right? So you could have a product, a new building material that is chemical free, right? It has no lead, but the way you make it, it's very, very energy intensive. So it almost defeats the purpose, right? Or the way you transport it comes from far away, and there all this embodied carbon creates another challenge there. So they were looking at this idea of green chemistry and green buildings, as well as the embodied carbon material. Another project was around the microgrids. So I don't know if you're familiar with microgrids, but actually the UCSD campus is a microgrid. So the way it works, basically, if there's a power disturbance in the system, in the electrical grid, UCSD could literally isolate itself from the network, right? It could operate on its own. We generate enough power on campus to power most essential assets. So they were looking at this particular project from the city of San Diego, where in this particular project, they were asking, well, how can we identify non-campus-based microgrids? So microgrids that are not like a campus structure, like a single building. So think of it a rec center that could potentially island itself off from the network, that could become a cooling zone in case of a high heat. So imagine if we had major fires in San Diego, or there's a disturbance in the network, the center could operate on its own for a number of hours using batteries and solar energy and provide that cool zone area. Or potentially it could be used as an emergency center, right? Like for the fire department. So what the team did is they went out and first looked at several structures that the city of San Diego owns, rec centers, library, fire stations, and they came up with an algorithm to identify the requirements. And by the way, all this was in talking to the client, right? They were having conversation with them, and they were teaching them the different aspects of the criteria the city was looking for. They talked to different stakeholders out there, and they came up with this, for the lack of a better word, a spreadsheet that allows you to enter a location, and based on the criteria, it tells you if this is an ideal space to potentially build a microgrid, right? So the tool was actually pretty exciting in that regard. So, and there are others. I'm happy to tell you more, but does that answer some of your questions? And I encourage you to look at the testimony that we have on the website, because that might give you a glance at what how the student felt about the program and what they've learned.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. And I'll definitely check out the website.
Yeah. One thing that you're welcome. One thing that I would mention that for those of you that will participate in the program, you'll be asked to tell your story. Right? You'll be asked to do a short video about either during the program or at the end about your journey, right? Because we really want to try to document that process so we get more people excited about it, but also try to really make you understand that you're not only going to school to learn new skills and knowledge, but you are learning to really become these change makers, right? Once you graduate, going out there and solving these impossible problems that seems to be impossible, but that could ideally be solved if we put the time and energy. So. Other questions? Are you all going to apply? I definitely encourage you. Sorry, I'm writing a note. I realize while talking I thought. Any other questions? I mean, I don't want to hold you more than I need. Was this helpful? Okay. Okay. Well, I'm glad. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I really encourage you all to apply. This is a fantastic program. If you cannot apply this quarter, stay tuned. Join the Basement newsletter to stay up to date on what's coming. There are other programs. We're doing another. We're launching another program. I'll just do a quick intro on. It's a very different program. It's around biomimicry. So bio means life, mimicking life. It's all about nature-based strategy. This program is not as rigorous as this one. It's really a competition. So we're encouraging students to apply with us and learn about biomimicry. So learning how to solve humans' biggest challenge using potentially biology or nature-based strategy. And there's more to that. Obviously, there's going to be a workshop on explaining the process. But in this context, you learn about biology to design and design to engineering. And then you also get yourself ready to apply for the Biomimicry Global Design Challenge, which the application deadline is June 30th, 2021. So then you'll potentially be one of the UCSD team to compete globally. So anyway, we'll have a session on that next week, actually. So thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you.